The Great Leap Forward explained. The China that Mao and his Communist Party inherited was undoubtedly a shattered one. See, China had never really had much in the way of food security or industrial success, but the Japanese invasion that had ravaged them and the subsequent civil war had exacerbated these existing issues that China faced. But hope was not lost. The first 5 year plan, modelled on the Soviet Union's, which, despite its high human cost, had rapidly industrialized the Soviet economy, was insanely successful. Families were organized into mutual aid collectives, starting in groupings of 10 and over the next years into groupings of up to 250. These collectives would share the means of production, and the agricultural surplus, much like in the Soviet system, was funding capital investment. By its peak, the Chinese life expectancy had increased by 2 decades. However, what goes up must come back down. The de-Stalinisation of the Soviets had shocked Mao, and in a period of time when the successful CCP was encouraging free debate and criticism, this was possibly the worst thing that could have happened. These reforms were rolled back, and the Sino-Soviet split began. The second plan, named the Great Leap Forward, began to shun the technocratic bureaucracy of the first, and was devoid for the most part of Soviet aid and support. Here, Mao wished to move away from the Soviet model. Instead of agricultural efficiency enabling rapid industrialization, the Great Leap Forward aimed to merge the two with an ideological focus on the peasantry. The aforementioned collectives were coupled with mass state decentralization, and Mao's increasing paranoia that would eventually lead to the Cultural Revolution was beginning to show. The existence of so-called rightists in China was increasingly touted, and pressure was placed on local revolutionary groups to produce these rightists, even where and when they didn't exist. Furthermore, the not necessarily economically unsound idea of small industry, which is where the famous idea of the backyard iron furnaces comes from, was crippled basically from the get-go. In their effort to utilize China's massive manpower and counter its lack of industrial and agricultural capital, the inefficiency of this small-scale production was becoming apparent. There was simply not enough work hours in the day, and the food surplus was not big enough. Furthermore, the political situation provided very little help. Counter-revolutionaries were being named, and two factions formed. Those that believed zeal had outstripped reality and a return to the Soviet model that had proved to be successful was necessary, and failure stemmed mostly from ideological purity and unnecessary decentralization of state. And on the other hand, those that believed it was actually the bureaucrats that had failed them, and more revolution was needed. We only need to see what happened next to see who won that fight.